Compatibility plays a huge role in choosing friends, business partners, and of course, romantic partners. So what is compatibility and how can we make sure that we're compatible with others?
Dun, dun, dun. Hello, hello. Happy Monday. Welcome to Carlie's Couch.
Glad to have you here with us as always. Thanks for listening. Thanks for leaving those 5 stars, comments, etc. If you haven't in a while, hit pause right now and go ahead and do it. Get us right for 2023. Thank you.
You know what I'm saying? Because we on bigger and better. We just keep getting better. So we need those reviews to keep rolling in.
And also, as you listen to this episode today, think about people in your life that you might be dating or friends, etc., and see what their thoughts are on compatibility as well. So I think compatibility is an important topic because everybody's always talking about it. So whether you're scrolling any social media, it's always kind of about like who people like, who, do they like me back? You see astrology conversation all over the place. So like, as soon as you meet somebody, it's like, well, what's their sign? And looking it up and asking, what is that joke? It's like a joke about like, if she asks you what city you were born in, and what time, like run, because
or if
she's trying to look it up.
I'm about to say, or if he already knows his big 3 that he's a hoe.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of talk. Right. And then there's a lot of ways that people talk about compatibility. And so today we're going to just really break it down, talk about what compatibility really is all about and how we can make sure that it benefits us in our relationships.
So when we're thinking about compatibility, like what is it? What is compatibility?
To me, I think about compatibility and I think about having a shared outlook on life and shared values for wanting the same types of things out of life that we can do well together. Because we're not always like butting heads. What about for you? What does compatibility mean to you?
Pretty similar. In my head, I see a picture though, like of like puzzle pieces that fit together. It's just that like even in business, I think about like, oh, like you might have strengths where I have weaknesses. And so we're good. Like we make a good team, like people that make a good team that can work well together, that have shared vision and that get along pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but even in that example, I think it's the shared vision part that makes people with different strengths and weaknesses work well or not, or like be compatible. So it's like going a little bit beyond like the surface of just like what might attract you or what sparks like chemistry, et cetera, in you to really like, okay, could we survive together? So one definition that I saw that I liked was compatibility is the capacity for 2 systems to work together without having to be altered to do so. So, about can you be your authentic and safe and full self with another person and that works, like you get along. And that sounds obviously like a obvious thing, but so many relationships we see where it's like, do people even like each other? Or like it's all about like how can you change or do a thing, or how can I be more this, less that, and not so much about just, okay, can you be yourselves and everything works smoothly.
Yeah, that last bit about without having to be altered to do so is a little bit poetic, and I've never like heard that, so I love that it was put that way. You mentioned earlier chemistry and compatibility. Like, what's the difference, and what are those like when it comes to relationships?
Chemistry, I think, is one of those things that you can have with a person, regardless of like how much you know about them, or and chemistry is not like a glue that keeps you together. To me, I think of chemistry as more of like a spark. I think of chemistry as we, every time we see each other, we can joke it up, we can laugh, we can have fun, we can enjoy each other in the moment. We flow together effortlessly. But the difference in compatibility for me is that being more of a good fit based off of the shared values. So we can laugh and joke it up, and you might want to go to church every Sunday, and the other person be like, yeah, I don't believe in that, but y'all have a great time when y'all link up, right? Or other things. Like there's lots of different reasons and different things that might not be shared that don't quite make you compatible, but you guys have a great chemistry together.
Do you think that one is more important than the other? Like, can you have a great relationship if you're compatible, but you don't have any chemistry, and maybe vice versa?
I don't know. I think you cannot. I think you would not have a full relationship without compatibility. And it can be okay with chemistry. But even in my experiences, those relationships that have a lot of chemistry and very low compatibility is also a lot of like arguing. It's a lot of the types of relationships where you're like in and out a lot. And you keep coming back because it's like it's fun, but also that downtime is just really messed up. So I don't think that that's a thing. Being compatible with somebody without the chemistry is also doesn't really sound very fun. And so that might be somebody you're compatible with, but also if part of like a value or a shared thing is about like a certain humor or fun that you want to have in your life or envision for your life, then you may actually just not be as compatible if you don't have all of that chemistry. But I don't think you will always have chemistry, or I think that can change. So I think you can be compatible and be with somebody, and the way chemistry looks or shows up can be different.
And I think that the biggest piece of that is like share vision. It's like, man, we can be having a good time and not going nowhere. Like this cannot be like going anywhere and thinking about life as it's moving forward. It's like, I think compatibility is important mainly because it's like, we're going to similar places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when we think about compatibility with another person, there's like a lot of different things you can maybe think about, like a list where it's like, all right, well, what about this, this, and this, and this? Like, where do we stand with these things? So one of them is like a vision for a lifestyle, and lifestyle encompasses a lot of things. So if you're thinking about a friend, it may be like, all right, do we both like to be outside as much, or like to go places, or does one like to just be inside all the time? With a partner, it might be, okay, what is their vision for having a family life? Like your whole relationship is not going to work if one person really wants one thing and the other person really doesn't want to have kids or something like that. Your lifestyle can be about how much you want to travel. Your lifestyle can be about how much work you want to do, or if you're one of those people where everything is always about work and you really just want to, be buckled up and spend that much time doing things. So there's a lot of different pieces of lifestyle that's like, okay, it needs to be understood. And for you to be able to live a life that's compatible with somebody, and that means you're not altering your state, means like, can you be that and live that and go that direction without there being friction from that other person?
That one is huge. Another one is having a similar like mind capability or like intellectual level, because you don't want someone who like doesn't like to read and never wants to expand themselves, and then someone who really does. I do think that, sometimes opposites can attract, but like you really want someone who can keep up with you in conversations, especially if you enjoy talking.
Yeah, and I think it also is a signal when you don't. Like if you're somebody who is attracted to people who are not as intellectual as you, like they're not into the same things, that causes a lot of friction. And that can also maybe show like you might have control issues or power issues as well, where it's like you rather feel like you're the smartest person. But actually, I could think of a relationship actually where, and I don't even know if it's as much intellectual as like they're both very smart, but they just like consuming different things, like very reality based versus like documentary style. So it's like they don't enjoy a lot of things together. Because they don't like to engage their minds in the same way with like media and stuff like that. And I've seen how that can like cause some issues at times. Another characteristic of being compatible is shared values. And I think that this is the biggest one. If you, and I've in my past had examples where our values were just super different. And I guess partly like the way we see life. So like ideas around like what's forgivable and around grace or around what's wrong. So there have been things that to a partner of mine, like these are bad things to do, or they're wrong things to do, or it needs to be done this way. And I just definitely just, it's like, I don't agree. Or like for me, it doesn't look like that. It looks totally different. And so we had like a lot of just different values. And so because so many of those core things were so off, it's like it is always, we never could center back to the same space. And so imagine if you have the same shared values as somebody where you agree on what's important in life and you agree on the ways to approach life or the ways you approach life. Imagine how much more easy conflict resolution is. Imagine how much easier it is to like be on the same page about particular like causes or issues, things of that nature. Imagine how much more power that gives you in like working against or for whatever a thing might be. And even just in how you view life, right? To have a partner or somebody who can understand that a little better and who can allow you to live in that and express that without it being confrontational.
Man, that's huge. I think that that's so important. And you kind of touched on it, but I would say like in this also like people's methods of communicating, like because somebody could be someone who runs away from stuff and doesn't really want to talk about stuff, and there's people who want to talk about stuff all the time. We mentioned a little bit about attachment styles, but that's also like conflict styles. Like how do you deal with conflict? Like what's your capacity to like forgive someone and give them space for something, or like do you always just cut them off at it? So thinking about like how you just handle everything that happens in life, because you're going to end up talking to your partner or your friends or whoever like more than probably anything else.
Mm-hmm. And those methods of communication, and probably all these actually can reflect back on your values too, because imagine if if I feel like, oh, you're lying to me because you didn't tell me something as soon as you thought it, right? And another person might be like, no, that's not just what I want to talk about right now. Or like it just could be different for people. And so imagine because you communicate differently, maybe you want to process longer, or you're not ready to talk when they are, whatever. To them, they consider that you're lying to them, or you are doing something that's wrong according to what they value. So all of those things can definitely be signs that you are definitely parts that are important in compatibility. Also, complementing goals. If you are a person who wants to see the world and you're with somebody who wants to be very secure, is very gung-ho about, I want a house, or I want to, just live in a certain space or in a certain way, and you want things to be different, then where exactly do you expect both of y'all's lives to go? Like one of you has to alter or has to be okay with like, having less than what you desire. And so things like that, of course, are important as well. Like, do your goals complement each other? And again, none of this stuff is like they have to be the same, but it's important to understand and have these conversations with folks because, if you're on a dinner date or if you're out at a party and you're just chatting with somebody and you're like, oh, we could be friends, but they talk about how like they hate smoking and they want to travel the world and this and this and this, like pay attention to that. And it's okay if it's like, oh, I know I'm opposite from all those things. So like, let me not keep going down this path for no reason if we may not be compatible to be friends. So all of these things are helping you to show like what compatibility looks like, but also kind of give you ways to have conversations so you can learn about other people and understand where you might not be compatible.
Yeah, and knowing like where your values are. I think this also comes with people's like non-negotiables. Like if you want kids and somebody doesn't, like that's a huge area of like not compatibility. But one kind of in the same thing that I think that we don't think about when it comes to compatibility a lot is like having a matching sex drive. Or I would also add like openness to kinks and trying different stuff. Like what's your comfortability with your own sex life, and you're also like your partner exploring theirs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And like how expressive you are, whether like with sex, with day to day, like all of that stuff. Like, I mean, I feel like we know all the things, but it's more just a matter of like, all right, first of all, when you think about compatibility, and this is something we haven't even brought up yet, but like knowing yourself, we've talked about that in different episodes. Knowing yourself, we've talked about knowing what are your values and things of that nature. And so, like, if you're very clear on yourself, then I feel like that will take the friction away from like dating and meeting people in general, all of those things, because you feel more like you know yourself, you're confident in yourself, and so it allows you to approach compatibility from a way not necessarily trying to be like, oh, will this person match with me, but like you know who you are, and so like what am I being attracted to at this moment, like as you meet other people. So like knowing yourself makes a huge difference.
I think that's obviously the most important to start, but then it's cool because then it can kind of become fun. It's like, what works best for me, like what, without altering, which I still love, but like what works best for me, like what is the most fun, when do I feel the most seen and the most myself in all of these instances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so like one thing I feel about compatibility, which I thought maybe it was up here. One thing up here about compatibility I think that's important is like how important is compatibility everything? Like, how important do you think compatibility is, Carlie? Like, what is it an important thing to, like, for example, like, you're on a first date and, like, let me figure out if we're compatible, or, like, where does it play in like moving around and building relationships?
Yeah, I think compatibility is really important, especially like shared vision and values. Like I don't really have anybody in my life that's not aligned with those things. But I don't think maybe that's like a first date thing. I think that's like when you're figuring out people's personalities and stuff, and you can start to ask questions. I think it's really important, like when it comes to it. But I think for me, it's something that you kind of learn as you go along, because you're not gonna know somebody's like conflict resolution and communication styles right up. But like the big things you should probably start to figure out pretty early, because you don't want to end up, falling in love with somebody who is completely misaligned with everything that you're working towards.
Yeah, but I think that like in everything you see of a person, it can give you some notes. And I think that it's important to pay attention to like those little notes, or like those hmms when you see them sometime. So like, for example, I don't like the idea of like you just start maybe talking to somebody and then like rushing to look up like, oh, how does a Scorpio and an Aquarius like match up? Which, it's kind of fun to do those things though. Mm-hmm. But what is that doing? It's fun because it gives you like this false sense of security. And like anytime I'll do that, it's like you want to try to guarantee something instead of like living it out and just seeing like what happens, right? And it's kind of like you're trying to get ahead and what could be a thing, and it's just like doing too much instead of allowing things to play out. But I do think now with social media and dating apps and all the methods and ways in which we can see who a person is just from what they even say all day, that there's also been times where I might have gone out on a date with somebody, but then like if I see them tweeting, or they talking about certain issues in a certain way, or like about women in a certain way or whatever, then I am going to be like, like I don't, you can joke and be a troll all you want or whatever, but like also that's not the type of person that I know I wouldn't necessarily be involved with. So why am I going to keep wasting my time like talking to them? So I think there's a lot of things you can see about people, but you always have to stay open to like exploring with them. And I think that similar to like with the last episode, part of compatibility is like if you're feeling safe with a person. And so yeah, like I think getting to know somebody, letting it unfold, and figuring out the compatibility is important without trying to like force it or make it like a rush thing, like you're just trying to find a quick answer to tell you how is this going to turn out, instead of just like living it day to day.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the risk you run sometimes when you approach things like with a checklist. Like, okay, well, you have this job and you make this amount of money, and okay, you got the car and you live this and you want to stay in California. Oh, all right, we're good. It's like then you try to like make stuff fit, but also remember like it's easy for people to have a facade for like the first however many months you're dating, and I think
like 2 years.
Yeah, and if you come up with like, man, I love a man who showers me with flowers in the morning, every day, and who does this, like people can start to feel what you tell them that you want, and that might not even be them too. Mm-hmm. And so being wary, like also of looking at compatibility as a checklist as opposed to like things that you feel out and explore together.
Yeah, and also you could be compatible with somebody and they be boring or not. You don't have chemistry or you don't have connection. And again, all those other things that are part of the formula to have. So I think it is important to understand like what formula makes sense for you, but it's more than just compatibility. But without the compatibility, I don't think you have longevity. And I think that's maybe the difference, longevity of your relationship. Because it's okay to have relationships in all kind of areas that might not be like that long forever or whatever. But in thinking about it that way, it won't go far and help you where you're going if you're not compatible.
Can you be too compatible with somebody?
What does that mean?
Meaning like, so you were talking about the couple earlier who, explore their media in different ways. Like what if y'all like the same shows and y'all have the same hobbies, and like they're both Scorpios and both like to run in the morning, and
maybe that's like a personal question. Maybe it depends on how it plays out too, right? Like if somebody was exactly like you in every way, then that might be something that's super boring or whatever. But if you all have the same, if for me, it's important to like have to do things together. So it's cool if we have a lot of interests and hobbies that are aligned, and I'm likely anyway to like whatever that person's hobbies are to like learn about them and be interested in those as well. And so we might not have friction, but I'm sure that there's going to be something that's not just like me, based off of their background and other things. So I don't know if you can be too compatible. I'm going to say no.
And on the opposite side of that, if we're talking about compatibility, like is it bad to be opposite of someone? Do you think opposites attract?
I think that opposites can attract, but I think that opposites in the areas that we mentioned earlier with the values, goals, etc., will not have compatibility. And so, but you can be opposites, like to what you said. You can have similar compatibility with the shared values, goals, where you can look at things and deal with things, but maybe you have opposite interests and opposite things that you do or like to do, etc. And so in that way, sure, but I don't think you can have opposite like core things and be compatible.
I agree with that. And I do think sometimes like shared core compatible foundation, but then opposites could even be a good thing in certain areas. Like if one person is more patient and the other one's more quick to pop off, like you can learn from each other and grow as long as y'all have that shared foundation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So think about how you're compatible with others. Think about what your kind of checklist and things look like for you of what you enjoy, love, value, etc. And think about how your friends, like in what ways you're compatible. That might be a good first thing. Actually, is like people that you already have in your life. In what ways are you compatible, and what ways are you not? And then thinking about like, okay, what does that play in the relationship, and like, does that play into how like maybe some people are closer, or you have a different type of relationship, or whatever, and what that means. Because the benefits of it is like you should really be able to be yourself. You should really like that person how they are. Like it's not like you're trying to change them. And y'all have enough commonalities to where like you can enjoy life together. So all those things are important for relationships, and especially in building new ones.
Man, so also look at y'all's relationships, and can you say those things about your relationships? I think that's also a great way just to look at them. And you were saying that, and I was like, man, I think Carlie's Couch works because we do have shared values and vision for like things, but then we're very different, which is a great thing because then it actually like makes it a lot more interesting instead of listening to like two of you or two of me, which I mean also might be interesting, but not as interesting as having opposing point of views or ways of like perspectives of ways of looking at the world. And also you're the only Aquarius friend that I have, I think. Like I'm pretty sure you're my only Aquarius friend.
You might need to go down the list and check that. Okay, so hope y'all enjoyed this quick episode on compatibility, and allows you to think about your relationships a little bit differently, more fuller. This week's question, Carlie, what brought you joy today?
Driving with the windows down and the beautiful weather and just listening to music. What about you?
What brought me joy today was remembering I had leftovers last night.
That's such a good feeling.
And I was like, man, what I'm about to eat real quick. I was hungry too. I waited till I got hungry. I was like, dang, what I'm about to eat. And I was like, oh, snap.
So win, baby.
Yeah, that's a big win.
Hit us. Let us know what you thought about this week's episode at Carlie's Couch on all platforms, and also what brought you joy today.
See you next week.